we have our guest on the line. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce a man who I consider to be an architect of my childhood, pretty much. And I know that's probably going to make him feel old. I'll have to apologize for that when we bring him on. Okay, so without further ado, I'll introduce him. Mr. Phil Lollar. Phil, how are you this evening?
I'm doing very well, thank you, sir. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for coming on the show. I know it's late over where you are, and you're probably staying up to be on with us, but we really appreciate it.
It's late everywhere.
So, we have the main reason that you're on the show this evening. You have a new project that you're working on, isn't that right?
That's right. Yes, the project is called Iliad House, and it's a brand new audio drama series. And my partners and I are doing it all on our own. We don't have any kind of organization backing us or anything like that. We're doing this independently. And so we're very excited about it, and we're trying to crowdfund it through Kickstarter, and so that's basically it. I mean, a lot of people have asked me if it's associated with Adventures in Odyssey. It isn't. It isn't associated with Adventures in Odyssey or Focus on the Family or anything like that. But we are having a good time trying to get it backed and get it on and get it up and running.
What can you tell us about Iliad House?
Well, Iliad House is from the practical side. Iliad House is an audio drama aimed at 9 to 14-year-olds, and basically the story involves a young man named Jesse Davidson. And Jesse is an orphan. He was orphaned when he was 3. His parents were killed, and he kind of bounced around from foster home to foster home to foster home. And then he and the authorities discovered that he had an uncle he never knew he had. And his uncle is this kind of a strange, unusual, very intelligent, he used to teach at the university, has a couple of PhDs, man named Christopher Portalis. And Christopher lives at this really unusual, it's this reason that it's a great match for him. He owns this place called Iliad House. And Iliad House sits at the southern tip of an island called Verity Island. And the island rests off the east shore of the United States, and strange and unusual things happen in and around Iliad House. The whole idea behind this is that there are kind of places in the world where unusual, strange, odd, and supernatural things happen, and Iliad House is one of those places. And Christopher Portalis kind of figures into this in a very, very important way in terms of what happens in and around Iliad House. And Jesse is coming to live at Iliad House. Actually, when we first meet Jesse, he's been living there about 2 years. And one of the things that happens immediately, not immediately, but when we first start our series, one of the things that Jesse discovered upon first coming to Iliad House was an old train, 1860s era locomotive and a coal car and a caboose. And he and his friends have been using this as a clubhouse for about a year. They thought, okay, well, this thing is just all sitting here by itself and all stationary and nobody's doing anything with it, so we'll turn it into a clubhouse. And then about a year after using it for about a year, they discover that this train is not stationary, it can actually move, but it moves through time. And they have they go through all sorts of adventures on this train. That's the pilot series. They go back and forth through time. They learn a lot of deep, dark secrets about themselves and some not so pleasant truths about themselves. And they also learn that there's forgiveness and redemption for everyone who asks for it and needs it. And then Jesse learns that he and his uncle are both at Iliad House for a much greater reason than anybody realized. So that starts it off. That kicks off the whole adventure of Iliad House right there.
I can't tell you how excited I am about it. Like you said, it's for 9 to 14-year-olds mainly, but I mean, just like a lot of the episodes that you wrote for Odyssey, I'm sure that it would be far-reaching as far as people that would enjoy it, right?
Full appeal, yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. I mean, the whole idea behind this is that years ago, when I was still working on Odyssey, and we were doing a lot of different kinds of things, I always had an idea that I'd like to do a kind of a spin-off of Odyssey for the older kids, older listeners, not just kids, but and Odyssey is really more for families and kids than just kids too. But that's the way this is going to be. But nothing ever came of that, and again, I kind of had this idea in the back of my head for a long, long time, and but nothing happened at that point, and that idea has changed a lot. This is, again, as I said, not affiliated with Adventures in Odyssey or Focus on the Family at all. It's a completely independent series. But the technology is now available for us to be able to do this, and we're really excited that we can, the possibility exists for us to do this independently, crowdfunding it through Kickstarter, which is going on right now, by the way. That campaign is. And also just the technology of how it would be produced, how we can work on recording actors all over the country, which I do, and then bringing all their they send all their voice tracks into me, and I produce it into a coherent drama, and it actually works. I mean, I've been really surprised at how the technology has changed that much. So we're very, very excited.
It sounds amazing, and I just have to tell you, just the general overview that you gave, may I just say, and Josh, you can echo me if you so desire, mind blown. Seriously, for just an overview of like your just your first few episodes or whatever, or even your first season or however you want to describe it. That is epic.
Well, one of the things that I really kind of want to do is take on subject matter that may not. It's not that it hasn't been taken on. It's just that in Christian circles and in circles where people are believers and stuff, they don't really take on these kinds of stories. We kind of shy away from things like time travel and things like we're going to do stories about alternate dimensions and other planets and other worlds and supernatural things and stuff like that. And that's just not stuff that you normally hear in a typical show that is whose primary audience, certainly not the only audience, but primary audience is the Christian community. But I don't want to shy away from those things. I mean, I like those stories. I think there are lots of people out there who like those stories, and we shouldn't be afraid of things like that. If God is anywhere, He's everywhere. He is the God of time. He is the God of space. He is the God of infinite dimensions. He is the God of the supernatural, and we should be able to find Him and look for Him in all of those places. So that's why I want to kind of take on those kinds of stories and have fun with them. And there are plenty of shows like this and movies like this and stuff like that on television that take on that kind of subject matter, but they don't take it on from they don't have a Christian worldview in taking those kinds of stories on. And I think it's about time that we do.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, with Adventures in Odyssey, there were the theology, and it kind of, and I don't mean this in a bad way, it kind of got a little heavy-handed in some episodes. Every episode had its own moral, every episode had its own Bible verse or multiple Bible verses attached to it.
Sure.
Is that the kind of thing that you're doing with Iliad House, or is it going to be just more the Christian worldview of it without it being as heavy-handed?
I think that we will use Bible verses when it's appropriate to do so within the context of a story. Mm-hmm. But we will not do as Adventures in Odyssey has done and other shows have done that I've worked on have done, where exactly what you said, where we have the Bible verse and then we pull a moral out of the story. This is more of a story that's presented from the Christian worldview. So, we'll treat the audience as grown-ups, and not that Adventures in Odyssey doesn't do that, but we're going to let the audience understand that they have to pay attention and they have to derive this sort of thing from what from the story itself. And it'll
That's
be there.
Really...
I mean, there's no question about it. It's going to be. We don't apologize for trying to hide what we are and who we are at all. We have a legitimate and what we believe, of course, is the best worldview there is, and it's going to show up in everything that we do. It's C.S. Lewis's old thing of, it's not that we don't need more Christian writers. We need more writers who are Christians who write about everything.
Absolutely.
And,
right.
That's what
100%.
I'm taking. That's what I'm taking to heart here and trying to do. I mean, Lewis did that very, very well, I thought, in the Chronicles of Narnia. It's not like he had, and in fact, in all of his fiction work, it's not like he put chapter and verse down on every single thing, but you could pick chapter and verse out of a lot of different things that he did. So,
right,
same kind of thing.
Right. Now, you've said in now I obviously know a little bit more about the project because I'm a backer and whatnot than the listening audience would. Will there be any familiar voices, shall we say?
Oh yeah, I think you'll find that there are some familiar voices. Now, in saying that, I've always been a fan of programs and of particular authors and directors of media who use the same folks in show after show after show, but give them something else to do, so that they're not so typecast. So, in saying, excuse me, I got a little cold, saying that there are going to be some familiar voices, yes, there will, but they may be in roles in which you don't recognize them. So, so hopefully, what's going to happen is that we'll have these wonderful performers that everybody knows and everybody has come to love over the years, but they'll be doing things that they haven't done before, different kinds of roles. So that's the whole idea behind this. Give them something to stretch and something to latch onto and something to play with and have fun creating themselves.
Could I ask just a sort of a slightly more to the point on that? Are you basically saying that you're going to be hearing voices that you will recognize from, like, Adventures in Odyssey, for instance, just in a different role, or are you going to be hearing a voice that you would have recognized from Adventures in Odyssey and suddenly say, our listeners know my voice, but if I suddenly started coming in talking like this, they might not quite recognize me right off the bat. Something like that. Are you? Is that
the answer to that question is yes.
All right.
Great.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they're gonna have some voices may be instantly recognizable. Some characters are, I know who that is exactly. I know exactly who that is, but some may not. And then the neat thing about that is if we can, if we do it right and things are done well, which I have no doubt of the actor's ability to do this. It's always wonderful when people find out later on. They go, "Oh, that was that person. Oh, that's awesome." Yeah. That's what I really love. When you go, "Oh, I can't believe that was the same person. That's the same actor. Oh my gosh, that's great." So that is very exciting to me. The prospect of being able to do something else that they're recognized for doing one thing, but then they come along, they do something else, or you may just get a little twinge. That's the great thing about radio. The great thing about audio broadcasting and audio programming is that you kind of know, where have I heard that? There's something about that that's familiar, but I still can't place it. And then you go back and go, "Oh yeah, that's who that is. Oh yeah, that's fantastic. I love that." That's when it's really fun, I think.
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
I know it's been just about 14 years since you've been on Odyssey, but would you mind if we ask you some questions about Odyssey?
Not at all. I've actually been on a couple of episodes in the recent, some of the recent albums. This is the old character that used to play Dale Jacobs. They brought him back. For a couple of things,
yeah.
So. I haven't written anything for the show for a while, so.
Now, as I stated when I was bringing you on, I grew up on Odyssey, and I'm sorry if that makes you feel old at all.
No, that doesn't make me feel old. What makes me feel old is that two of the characters that we had as kids on Odyssey from the very beginning are now married and have kids of their own. So that makes me feel a lot older.
And now they're saying, hey, we're really excited about your new project. We're going to have our kids listening to it.
Their kids, some of their kids are old enough almost to get married and have kids of their own. That's how old I feel. So.
Oh goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I had said, I grew up on it, and like for instance, the complete guide to Odyssey that you wrote, I used that as a checklist when I was growing up on on episodes that I had listened to and that I hadn't listened to, and literally my favorite series was the one that you had your hands all in, was Darkness Before Dawn.
Yeah.
You directed 6 episodes and you wrote 6 episodes of it. Am I right?
I think that's correct. Yes.
Yeah. Who now when you were writing Odyssey, who was your favorite character to write, and why was it Dr. Regis Blackguard?
Well, I had a lot of favorite characters to write, but the fun thing about Dr. Blackguard was that prior to him we didn't really have a villain per se.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, we kind of had some bullies and stuff like that, but we didn't really have anybody that was a major, proponent of the opposite of what Wit and everybody else in town believed.
Right.
And the fun thing about writing for him was to not make him, a one-dimensional or two-dimensional character. Try to really flesh him out and give him more than that. There's a reason why he's doing some of the things that he does, and so it was just kind of neat to write from the dark side for a little while.
Right, absolutely.
And it's fun to take on that kind of character and see how you can make him come to life. And of course, the character owes so much. I mean, so much of what we did we owe to Earl Bowen, who did the vocal characterization. That voice was just so wonderful, and you go, wow. Earl was just awesome. So we owe a great deal of gratitude to Earl, but he was fun because we got a chance to explore some, to explore some of these arguments that we all have and some of these storylines that we all have from both sides. We could take on the issue from both sides, and present what we feel is the better side. I mean, this was a big thing. This was an epic battle, and so that's why I think I really liked Blackguard more than anything else. He was a fun character.
Absolutely. Now, your writing credits. You wrote like, I think it was like 300 episodes or something like that from what I read.
Something like that, yeah.
You had a very large amount of episodes, though, that came with parental warnings tacked on. Now you know why I wanted to do Iliad House. Right, of course. Was there anything in your time in Odyssey, or your time in writing or directing for Odyssey, that you wanted to do that got nixed by some family?
Well, actually, I did a couple of episodes that we only aired once, but I think have been subsequently put on other collections of kind of the lost episodes. I talk about trains. I did a thing aboard a train.
Waylaid, was that Waylaid in the Windy City, or was it a different one?
No, it was a different one. It was a mystery aboard a train.
Okay.
And it was like a murder mystery aboard a train. It all ended up being a big ruse. Which is, I think it was Whit's birthday, and Eugene had made this big kind of murder mystery aboard a train. And,
I think I remember the one you're talking about. Yeah, now, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a whole lot of fun to do that episode too. That was just a great amount of fun, but they felt that it was too intense for younger listeners. So it aired once, and we got some negative mail. So we said, okay, well, we're not going to air that one again. But again, I think they put that one in a collection somewhere. There were other ones that we did that one of the ones in particular that I did at one point, Focus on the Family was going through a very big public policy phase where they wanted every department in the organization to deal with public policy, different kinds of public policy issues. And so that even came down to us. How can we deal with things that are talking about public policy? And one of the things that we were talking about was the advent of homosexuality in schools and things like that. And so I wrote an episode called 1 in 10, and I think it dealt with a young man who was helping Jimmy Barkley out of a scrape. I think that's how it worked at one point, and then that young man ends up being a spokesman for gay rights, and he goes into Jimmy's elementary school, and there was this big thing about how does this happen, and why did it happen, and who said what, and when and where. And so we were starting to go down this public policy path, and I think Paul McCusker had actually written an episode called Pamela Has a Problem that was about abortion.
Right.
And we did the one. That was kind of the first one that we did, and before we could get to the rest of them, Chuck Bolte sort of came in and had a talk with everybody and said, I don't think we should be doing this, guys. I mean, this is not the kind of show that this is supposed to be. We're not really supposed to be hitting this stuff to this audience. And so I think calmer heads prevailed, and so 1 in 10 never got. I think we recorded it, but it never got produced. So those raw tapes are sitting in their archives somewhere. I doubt that they'll ever be produced at this point, but things like that. The episode, from what I remember, had story, which was fine at the very beginning. It's like the first half of it was actual story with things that are going on, kind of linear told. But then the latter part of it ended up like, I don't know if you remember the show Quincy. There used to be a show called Quincy, medical examiner. Right. Jack Klugman played Quincy. And the thing that always got me about Quincy is that he was solving these murders and these murder mysteries and stuff when he was a medical examiner. He would look at the evidence and he would be very forensic about it. And there was always a story that went along first, but at some point the story stopped, and he just sort of took over and did these monologues about very clinical monologues about how a medical examiner does what a medical examiner does, and it kind of stopped being a show, and it ended up being a documentary about medical examiners, and that's kind of what happened with this one. It stopped being an episode, and it ended up being a documentary about what happens with homosexuality in the schools, and I'm like, that's kind of strange. So the whole episode, just like I said, is sitting on a shelf somewhere. I don't think anybody's going to do anything with it.
Now,
that's sort of a bummer, actually.
Were there any episodes that you wrote that, looking back, you kind of were maybe have changed your mind on things that you put in, just different theology possibly you've changed your mind on, or that kind of thing? No, I can't really think that. I can't think of anything that, from that respect, that I would have changed. I don't think. Mm-hmm. I don't think that the shows are what they are. I think that the only thing that I might have changed would be, I wrote a school that I've actually had to a show that I actually had to apologize for it with a bunch of homeschoolers. There was a show that I did really early on about homeschooling, and it was so evident that I knew nothing about homeschooling when I wrote the show.
Oh my gosh!
I have since met
I remember
many
that show.
Yeah, and they were like, I wish you had talked to us, because it's not really what we are and what we do. And I said, yeah, you're right. I should have. So here's the really funny part, and you might get a laugh out of this. Josh and I were both homeschooled.
Yep.
And here's the best part. When your show came out, my mother had just started getting into the activism side of it.
Right.
And so we were one of the families that sent a letter off to Focus on the Family. We were actually one of those people who sent letters into you and to the rest of the guys saying, hey, just to give you an idea, this is what our day looks like, and this is what homeschooling actually is about, and so on and so forth. But if I recall correctly, I actually stated in that I loved the show, but this is a point that was kind of off, and this is actually how it would have gone. And then I really liked this part, but this part was off, and this is how it would have, that sort of thing. So it's really funny you bring that up, because I'm sitting here and like it just the good old times are rolling back.
Well, what's really interesting about that, just as one more thing to add to that, the irony of all that. Well, maybe not irony, but the fun of all that is my partners in Iliad House are all homeschoolers. All of them. As a matter of fact, I met the guys and ladies that I'm working with because they all work for the HSLDA group.
HSLDA Legal Defense.
They all work for them. They contacted me about a year ago, and I went to one of their Generation Joshua camps and did a little presentation for one of their iGovern camps. And I've done that for 2 years in a row now, and then I also went to their convention last year, their annual convention, and taught radio drama to a bunch of homeschoolers. So, and it was great. It was wonderful, and I was like, wow, okay,
yep.
I wish I had known about this when I wrote that episode, 20 years ago, 25 years ago.
Now, of course, I forgot what I was going to ask. Andrew, did you have any questions?
Yeah, actually. So you're talking about what having episodes getting basically blacklisted. Were there any other challenges that you ran into simply by virtue of being under the Focus on the Family umbrella?
Well, it's always hard to. There were a couple. When you write a show and you're dealing with good versus evil, which frequently we did on Adventures in Odyssey,
right?
It's difficult to write a show, good versus evil, when good seems to be to have all sorts of restrictions placed on it in the battle.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's just kind of the way real life is anyway. I mean, evil doesn't have any restrictions. That's why it's evil. Good often says, okay, well, we can't, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that, which is why we have to leave the battle up to the Lord. So that could be a bit frustrating, but actually it ends up that it's not frustrating. It just makes for better stories, I think. Better, telling them is a little bit more difficult, but it just makes for better stories. One thing that we did kind of have a bit of a restriction on, it's not really a restriction, it's just the nature of the way things happen with Christian audiences. We had a character early on called Officer Harley. I don't know if you remember Officer Harley.
Debacle.
But that character went the way of all good things because, he was a police officer, and we had a lot of fun with him, and he was funny, and Will Ryan played him, and played him to excellent. Played him in a very excellent and funny way, and we were able to write a lot of fun stuff for him. But because he was a police officer, people thought we were dissing police officers, and we weren't. We were just saying this guy when Officer Harley did police things, he was very good, but he just had a different way and a unique way of looking at the world, and it was funny and it was kind of goofy, and people didn't like that. So we went back and forth, and finally, we tried to redeem him, but it just ended up not happening, and word came down from the highest levels that Focus on the Family, actually the highest level, saying, get rid of that character. We don't want to ever hear him again. Get rid of him.
Oh, no, you don't want to hear the Dobson phone ring.
Yeah, we don't want to hear that again. So we said, okay, he's gone. He's out of here. Goodbye. So long. So it was kind of sad. We had a farewell for him and everything, and then, of course, we sort of resurrected the idea of the character in Harlow Doyle. But it was never really the same as Officer Harley. We had so much fun with Officer Harley.
Right.
Now, have you ever directed anything live action? I know you've directed other voiceover work other than Odyssey and other radio drama. Have you ever directed anything live action?
Like a motion picture or something?
Or short or anything like that, yeah.
Yeah, I have done a few of those. Nothing worth really mentioning. I think I have a couple of things on the internet or something somewhere. There, people have done some different things with them, and they were usually things. When I was going through grad school, I did a couple of shorts. We had a whole series of shorts that we put together. I don't know that mine has. I don't think I've actually put mine in a form that could actually go on YouTube yet, but it was a mini series, and it was a visual mini series, and it was a lot of fun to do that. But
well, the reason
why do you
that
ask?
I ask,
Do you have an idea?
yeah. Well, the reason that I ask is I'm in my roundabout way of asking it, what are the different challenges, between the differences between directing a voiceover actor versus directing a live action actor?
Well, I can say that when you say live action, I've also directed a great many live stage shows. So there's a visual element that goes along with those. Directing something visually is that you have one more element that you need to be very concerned about. You have to get as far as the actors are concerned, they have to not only sound right, they have to look right. They have to be able to play the role and look the way you want them to look, and you also have scenery and backdrops and settings and all sorts of things that you have to take care of in motion pictures and on the stage and on television. Whereas in audio drama, you don't have to worry about that. But I really love audio drama for that very reason. I think it's for me, I think it's the best way to tell stories. And the reason why is because movies are wonderful, television shows are wonderful, stage shows are wonderful, but they're passive. They're passive in that you don't have to bring anything to them. The audience doesn't have to bring anything to them. You go to see a movie because you're expecting everything to be laid out for you. So the director's vision of everything is there, and you don't have to bring anything to the table at all. No imagination, no nothing. With audio drama, you have to bring your imagination. We provide you with stories and with the backdrop in terms of the audio sound effects and the performances of the actors, but you have to be engaged. You have to bring your imagination. You have to use your brain. You have to use your mind. The theater of the mind is very active. And what's wonderful about that is that it could be anything, and it's going to be different for everybody. Everybody's going to bring a different thing to that. Every Adventures in Odyssey episode that you hear, and every subsequent episode of everything that I've ever done in Jungle Jam and Friends and in Kids Corner and in Paws and Tails and anything else that I've worked on, everybody's going to have a different way of thinking, of imagining what the characters look like, what the setting looks like, what's going on, how it all works. And that's what's really, really wonderful about audio drama storytelling. From a practical side as well, when the amounts of money that are involved in mounting a theatrical show or in producing a motion picture or television series, you have a lot of middlemen. A lot of middlemen. And they are going to put their 2 cents in, and rightfully as they should. It's their money. And they're going to put their 2 cents in how that looks and what happens with it and so you can't really tell the story that you want to tell as the writer and as the creator of the series. You can kind of tell a story that you want to tell, but it's going to go through a whole lot of other people, because when you're spending that kind of money on a motion picture, the people who have invested in the motion picture are trying to hedge their bets. They want to make money, that money back and profit. And so they're going to do what they can in order to do that. It's basically the business side of things. Well, that certainly is the case in audio programming too. Don't get me wrong; there is definitely that kind of component, but it's far less. And the artists now, the artists like myself, and the storytellers like myself, and the people who do this sort of thing, get a chance to tell the stories they really want to tell in the way they want to tell them. And that's what's really lovely and wonderful about audio drama.
Absolutely. Now, I can kind of gift wrap this all the way back around to Iliad House, and we can kind of, unless Andrew has any other questions, we
I just have one more, and that is, what were your thoughts when it was announced that Adventures in Odyssey, the audio program, was going to be turned into an animated video series?
Well, at first I was really excited about it, and I thought it was going to be a really fun thing, and because I thought I was going to be able to work on it.
Right.
I did work on it in terms of doing voices. I came in and did the voice of the dad for the first, I think, 3 or 4 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know what's happened after that because I kind of stopped following it. But
right.
But again, there's a prime example of because there's a lot of money being spent on it. Animation costs a lot of money, and they kind of turned it over to the people that they thought were experts at that point. So I was really excited about it at first, saying, okay, yeah, now we get to actually take what we've created here and we get to guide it and mold it and turn it into something that's visual, and hopefully we can maintain some of what we've done on the audio side in the visual side. But
right.
But that was sort of, taken away, and they went to people who had done video before in other areas, because none of us had really done any animated video at that point. And
right.
And I looked at that and said, well, I wasn't very happy with it, to be quite honest with you. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
if many of us were on the audio side of it, we're all that happy. But when I was younger, I mean, when it first happened, I was like, really? Oh, that's just, I was not happy with it. But I've since come to realize that there are a lot of people who really love the videos. They think they're really good, and they really like them. And I, who am I to say no? I mean, who am I to question that? That's not. People like what they like, and there are a lot of people who come to Odyssey through the videos, and God bless them. That's fantastic. I have no problem with that at all.
There was
but it's interesting to me. I mean, it goes back to what I was saying before. It's interesting to me that people who come to Adventures in Odyssey and who've known Adventures in Odyssey and the audience that we built up on the audio side were surprised, and I think at first they were kind of like, well, that's not the way I think it looks. That's not the way I think that Odyssey looks. I think Odyssey looks different. Why how come it did that? How come it looked like that? And it's not that they didn't like the videos. It's just that it wasn't the way they had imagined it. It's the same thing as reading a book. That's why a lot of novelizations very rarely are really successful when they are adapted for the screen, because there was a big flap, for instance, when Gone with the Wind was adapted for as a movie. Now, the movie itself was all by itself was a very, very successful movie, but there were a lot of people who were like, I don't think that's who I would cast as Scarlett O'Hara. I don't think that's who I would cast as this and this. And the only general consensus that was completely a yes was Clark Gable as Rhett Butler. I mean, because she basically, when you read the book, she basically describes Clark Gable. So, but that's about the only thing that anybody is really happy with. Mary Travers, there's a movie coming out now called Saving Mr. Banks, I think it's called.
Yeah, that's
and that the whole myth, the whole folklore, the whole movie is about the idea that Travers disliked the movie Mary Poppins. She didn't like it at all. The apocryphal story, I don't know if it's actually true or not, but the story goes that she came in for the screening. Walt Disney had a big deal and came in for the screening, the initial public screening of the movie, and after the movie was over, the screening was over, she turned and said, okay, when are you going to fix it? And Walt was like, fix it, it's done, this is it. And she goes, oh, surely that can't be, that's not right, this is terrible. She didn't like it at all. So it's the difference between the medium. I think. And that's kind of the way it works. But people like what they like.
Yeah. I brought it up. I brought it up because I remember the one comment that has stuck in my head all these years was a friend of mine looking at the animated movie and going, for some reason, every time I heard Wit, I never expected him to look like Wilford Brimley. And for some reason, that has just stuck in my head ever since.
You want to know what's really funny about that? When Steve Harris and I were trying to come up with a description for Wit, one of the first things he came up with was he had snapped an image from a TV commercial, and the image was Wilford Brimley.
You know,
he walked into our meetings when I'm sitting down. I'm trying to come up with the character of Wit and what he's like and who he's like, and he said, "Well, maybe this is what he looks like." It's like it was Wilford Brimley. He was doing the Quaker Oats commercials.
Yep.
I would say my biggest problem with the videos, the animated videos, was that was not what the Imagination Station looked like in my head.
That was a big flap. I mean, we had that, and we went back and forth with that for a long time. Just Paul McCusker and I just went back and forth, and even when we had created the Imagination Station for the audio side of things, you know, my description was always, it's very much like the holodeck in Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Right.
And Paul was very much. I think Paul was thinking more Doctor Who. He was thinking more of the TARDIS, except that was, you know, and from his point of view, the Imagination Station was, if anybody's walking outside and they look in, they're just going to see somebody sitting there. Because it's all happening in their imagination. And my thing is, no, if anybody was walking outside and they looked in, they'd see a whole scene going on.
Right.
You know, and the characters were interacting in the whole scene. And so we went back and forth with that for a long time. But I think that they just, I don't know that anybody, and again, this is what's so wonderful about audio drama, that everybody brings their own interpretation to it. And you can do, I mean, I say this now, I really still think this is true, but it's less and less true as the days go on, and as technology gets better. Stan Freberg used to talk about this a lot when he's of course the king of audio stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And he used to say, you know, what people used to ask him if you had the choice to do a movie or do another record, a recording or something on the radio, what would you do? And he said, I would pick radio every time. I'd pick audio every time. And they said, well, why? If you had the chance to direct a movie, write and direct a movie, he said, all right, come with me. And, you know, he opens the door and he says, here we are at Lake Erie, and Lake Erie is in the background, you know, and as I'm going to drain Lake Erie, hey, drain it, guys. You hear the plug go poop, and the Lake Erie is being drained. And now we're going to plug it back up, and we're going to fill Lake Erie with hot chocolate. Go ahead, boys. And now we're going to fly in some whipped cream. And here comes the big cherry, the helicopter, boom, and we're putting it right on top. And there's Lake Erie filled with hot chocolate and whipped cream and a cherry on top. Do that in a movie. That's what he used to say. And, you know, well, like I said, nowadays with technology the way it is, you know, you probably could do that in a movie, but it would cost a whole lot of money to do it in a movie. Whereas my just telling you that story, you know, and saying that story, and with Stan Freberg did it with sound effects, everybody's imagination is instantly engaged. Everybody is. You can imagine it, and it's right in your head, and it's right there. I can see Lake Erie filled with hot chocolate and whipped cream with a cherry on top. So, and that's, again, that goes back to, you know, different interpretations of what the Imagination Station was. And it didn't matter, of course, as long as it was audio, but as soon as you commit visually, well, now that changes everything. It not only changes everything for the videos, it goes back and changes everything audio-wise, too. And so suddenly we have to think in terms of, okay, now when we have people like in the Moses episodes, when Jimmy Barkley goes into the Imagination Station and his dad goes in after him, what does that mean? Why would his dad have to go in after him if all Jimmy is doing is just sitting there? Why can't Dad just open up the door and yank him out of there?
Right, of course.
You know, why would he have to go in after him? So all of a sudden now we're thinking, this is going back. This is all of a sudden we're going back to the litany of Imagination Station shows that we have done, and if we're committing visually in the videos that's what the Imagination Station is, well, all of a sudden we've got, you know, kind of a problem here, because now it doesn't quite make sense in what we've created in terms of the audio stories. So. You know, there's good and bad with both, but I think that, again, I think the audio stories are much more flexible in terms of how you can tell them, and they give the storyteller much more leeway. So
now we can I don't want to hold you for too much longer. So, like I said, I'll kind of gift wrap this, bring it all the way back around to Iliad House. We were talking about Harley and things like that. You're great at writing wacky characters. Harley, Harlow, Kevin from 321 Penguins. Will there be any surprise kind of wacky characters in Iliad House?
Oh, I think all of them will be wacky. I think
awesome.
the potential for wackiness is in every single character that I write. Or if not wackiness on their part, wackiness in the situation, which causes them to be wacky. My favorite stuff, my favorite more contemporary stuff, actually, this stuff is now 10 and even 20 years old, but one of my favorite contemporary writers is Joss Whedon.
Of course, yes.
He's such a great storyteller, and I just love the way he tells stories because he gives weight to the story where weight is needed, but he never lets it go on for too long. And that's what's really, without having some sort of funny thing happen. And if you go back to his series like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel and Firefly, there are these moments that are really heavy and really dramatic, and they're dealing with that stuff, but they always are broken up with a punchline. Somebody always has something funny to say, One of my favorite Buffy moments is the character Spike was standing at top of the hill and overlooking Sunnyvale, and he was giving this really dramatic speech about what he's going to do and how he's going to rain terror, and it's really heavy duty and very dramatic, and he's going to be, and no one is going to stop him. And the instant, and then somebody comes along and he gets shot or something with a laser, with a pellet gun or with a tranquilizer dart. He just kind of gets knocked out completely right in the middle of this really dramatic speech. He just gets knocked out completely, and it's like I love that about Whedon and writers like that have no respect for the ongoing dramatic soliloquy. So let's go ahead and, let's go ahead and put a little comical bit in the middle of it. The Avengers movie that he just did was last year was filled with that sort of thing.
Right, absolutely.
My favorite, the one that everybody was always talking about, was Loki giving his real, I am enough of this, I am a god, I am, and Hulk comes in and just beats the crud out of him and says, puny god, walks.
Yes,
I mean, it's that kind of thing that's just really fun and funny, and you go, yeah, let's put it in its proper perspective. Firefly was also just filled with that sort of thing, just filled with it, and I love that. That's the kind of writing that I really like, and that's the kind of stuff that we're going to strive for in Iliad House too.
Oh, that makes me so happy to hear.
Same here.
So you can find Iliad House on Kickstarter right now. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes. As a matter of fact, we just found out today that we were one of the staff picks. We were a staff pick when we first started. They really liked us, like day 2 that we were out, and we just found out that we were picked again as a staff pick. So if you go onto Iliad House and you go to the staff picks, or if you go onto Kickstarter and you go onto the staff picks, you'll see Iliad House right there. And
it's actually front page right now.
Yeah.
Yep,
so
it's on the front page.
Site. Yeah, and click onto it. And please, anybody who's listening, if you want to support drama, audio drama with great values, and it's fun and funny, and it's for the whole family, but we're going to be dealing with some really fun issues and great stuff and good storytelling. Please help us out, because we're a long way away from our goal.
Right, we're about there.
Yeah, about close to 14,000 now, and we need to get to 100 by the end of the month, and that's a long way to go. So, and with Kickstarter, of course, it's all or nothing. You get, if you don't reach your goal, you don't get anything. So we're really going. We really need help. So.
And if I can go ahead and just put this out for our listeners, folks, here's how awesome this is. Okay, and this is going to be. If you go to the Kickstarter page, Kickstarter.com, Iliad House is the number 1, the very top of the list.
Yep, first
on
front
the page
right now, front page.
So, get on it. Get on it, folks. They're just about at $14,000 right now. They need a whole lot more. You are going to be contributing and really, you're going to be getting the wheels off the ground of an absolutely amazing audio drama.
And we thank you very much for everybody who has supported us and everybody who will support us. We really, really thank you for that. And we've been very pleased. I was very, very pleased with the whole Kickstarter campaign that my partners and I pulled together. The video is really good. It's top-notch. We got a great artist in Cliff Cramp. He has done so many different kinds of album covers and book covers for Star Wars and for Raiders of the Lost Ark, and for the Indiana Jones series, and all sorts of different kinds of things. He's a fantastic artist. Our music composer, we had the theme for the series is written, and it's there too. You can hear the theme by Justin Durbin. Just really, really great people have come together and pulled together, and we're going to be posting some audio clips of the show, of the pilot series. Those are coming up in the next couple of weeks. So please go back and tell your friends and tell everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you have it. Mr. Phil Lollar, we want to thank you so much for coming on the show and indulging us, with our nostalgia about Adventures in Odyssey and bringing this new project to our attention.
Oh, you are very welcome. I'm very happy to be on your show, and it's great, even though it's so early in the morning when it's done. It's just you guys are fantastic, and thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much.
Much appreciated.
All right, there we have
Wow.
it. That was a great interview.
That was terrific. And folks, I know we really didn't take any phone calls. We didn't give the number out or anything during the interview.
We didn't need to, man.
Apologies for that. Only because I try to do that for listeners to ask questions of our interviewee. But in this case, we really wanted to make sure that he was able to talk about his project, get some questions answered, and get off to bed and get that cold of his back under control.
Absolutely.
So